Episode 5 of Around the Town with Taylor Brown. It's been a while. I hope you weren't domicile. How are you, Taylor?
Great, thanks, Lee. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, thank you. For those who aren't listening on Spotify, iTunes, and all them ones, TB has got his New South Wales sweater on. It's not, what would you call it? Like a rugby top type thing, wouldn't you?
It is. It's to be honest, it reminds me a bit of a Union-esque type top, doesn't it?
Yes.
So,
and in match 1 and match 2, they were tackling like rugby union players in days of yore. But now you're full of smiles. The white, cheesy grin has just come on your boat race because New South Wales actually won a game last night, Taylor, as we record. First of all, what does that mean in the bigger picture?
I don't know if it means a lot necessarily. What I do know is there's a lot of key lessons out of last night that New South Wales need to take on board. And if they take that on board, it will mean a lot for the future.
Would you like to?
What I mean is I strongly believe they picked a much better football side for last night. I was perplexed by the selection of Bradman Best originally. I didn't think he was necessarily the best option there at centre. He did have an absolutely outstanding game. That doesn't take away from the fact I would have liked to see a few other people in that spot possibly before him. And he is very far down the pitch, but that doesn't matter. But they picked a great side in the way that they had some young back rowers like Keon Kalamatangi come onto the field and play really good football. Cameron Murray, Liam Martin started the game, got big minutes as opposed to playing off the bench in the previous 2 Origins. I just think that if they take some lessons out of the way they picked their side and the way they played football last night into next series, then last night was a very big victory for New South Wales.
I totally disagree about the size of the victory for you. I do not think it matters. I think that all the pressure is off in a dead rubber. And what was his name in the Sydney Morning Herald? Andrew Webster. He said his headline read, New South Wales come up with the goods when it matters least, or something like that. And that is so true. I think, Taylor, and if you want to counter it, please do. It's your pod. And I'm just a presenter. Queensland weren't in do or die mode last night.
Mm.
They were in do or die mode with day 1 and day 2, game 1 and game 2.
Yes.
If you look on paper, you'd probably always say New South Wales, but that's the whole point about Origin. Last night was not do or die.
Yeah, and I do understand what you say there, but they attacked different last night. The flow was there. They looked a lot sharper.
Because there was no pressure, Taylor.
That might be so. I honestly think the injection of Cody Walker was a masterstroke. I think Cody Walker coming into that side, he'd only ever had one other chance in a blue jersey, and he came in last night, produced a man of the match performance. He was the key difference in their attack, and the way he ran the football unlocked James Tedesco and gave him the opportunity to run a little more freely because they had a little bit more to think about. And I apologise to Jerome Luai, but his running game and the way that he plays football, he's not the attacking player that Cody Walker is, and I genuinely believe Cody Walker is probably the best attacking 5'8" in the game right now, bar none.
Well, you've called for his inclusion for a long time.
I have. I think, as I said, after game 1, they went with Luai and Cleary because they have delivered on that stage together before. They've delivered in big games together. I completely understand. Give him the first run. I thought Cody Walker had done enough before game 1 to be included, but I understood their thinking and I thought, okay, this is how it's going to go. For game 2, I was a massive advocate of Walker. I wanted Walker in there.
And Reynolds.
Because Cleary had obviously gone down injured. They went with Moses and kept Luai, which just that combination didn't work at all. And Moses was played more so in a dinner suit in Origin 2 than he did last night. He really got his hands dirty, which I think that is probably...
You were happy with him last night?
I was happy with him last night. I think that was an advocate of what you say, though. There was no pressure on him last night. There was a lot of pressure. Game 2, there was no pressure last night. That's probably why he played a better game. Cody Walker, however, though, he come in, I think there was, a lot of pressure on him. You got a game that didn't succeed around game 1 and 2, and they've just thrown it to him and said, fix it. And I believe he played outstanding football. Let's not look past another big inclusion for the Blues last night as well, and that's Jake Trbojevic.
Yes.
Jake Trbojevic is, in my opinion, probably the first picked in any Kangaroo side that you pick.
Is that his first game in Origin this year?
That's his first game this year. He's been out injured the first 2 games. He got a calf injury literally the week of Origin that kept him out. So look, he's my first picked in any Kangaroos, in any football side I could pick right now in the world. He would be my first pick, Jake Trbojevic. I absolutely love him. I think he's sort of that important adhesive glue that keeps everything together in a rugby league side. And he's all heart, he's all passion, and one of the nicest fellas in rugby league as well.
Let's look to the future now for New South Wales before we look back and see where they got it wrong, right? First of all, does Freddie stay on? I know you've said in the past no, but my question now is more towards, well, there's news on NRL 360 tonight that the board are leaning towards an extra year.
So my question is, what are you asking? You ask me what I want, or you're asking me what I'm going to see?
I think I know what you want, as long as it hasn't changed. So what I'm saying is, what do you think will happen?
I think Freddie stays on for another year, unfortunately. And I don't think there was an acknowledgement. This was the hardest pill for me to swallow so far, is there hasn't been an acknowledgement from the 3 men at the forefront of the Blues organisation, Brandy, Freddie, and Joey. There has not been an acknowledgement of their wrongdoings and where they went wrong in Origin 1 and 2 at the selection table. Where
do you want that? Where do you want that acknowledgement to come? Because I think a lot of journalists have been quite critical of the whole process.
Journalists have, but where's the self-assessment? Where's the, at the end of the day, Lee, you know this, as a coach, as a selector, you live and die by the sword. At the end of the day, you are responsible for the team you put out in the paddock. I don't believe they put it.
What worries me is I still think they're going in. They still think they're going in the right direction. And even with what happened last night, and I've got to be honest, I didn't watch the game, right? But they could have won 80-0 for me last night. And they're not going in the right direction because it's a third different halfback pairing that they've picked. Yeah. They've completely changed Isaiah's role, which is what people like me called for, that he needed to play more like a prop. Yeah. They've messed Cameron Murray around. They've messed Nico Hines around. They messed Gutho around. Yeah. They've made an absolute horlicks of so much of it. They've messed the second rower up from the Tigers. I mean, he was in and then he's out. Like, to me, it looked like they panicked all the way through. Just because they happened to stumble across something that worked last night. Well, number one, it wasn't do or die. Number two, I think they played with a bit more gay abandon because of that. Number three, this wasn't by design. They didn't plan to have this combination in game 3. So I think the whole thing has been the preparations this year reminded me of under the late Paul Green Queensland a couple of years ago, where when things are going for you, they're going for you. When they're not, they're not. And it reminded me of that. And I said that after game 1, I think. So look, I can look. I'm friends with the Safiti's dad. His son made his debut last night. Right? If he hears me saying this, I can imagine him screaming. For every player that played, it was still huge. For Teddy, it was huge. For Gutho, it would have been huge. For the debutants, it would have been huge. But they weren't going into that game with the pressure of knowing that any mistake they made was going to result in them losing the series or winning the series. And that is it becomes more of a game of football for a game of football, sake. Yeah. Whether we like it or not.
To fulfill TV rights, really. That's what it becomes. Yeah. And I understand what you're saying, but you mentioning before that it's not a step in the right direction, whether they stumble upon it or not, they have to learn lessons out of it, and not just them or anything. if you are doing anything in life and you stumble upon something that works, you stick at it. You go, right, that works. Let's keep going. Cody Walker selection last night was a success.
Can he play with Cleary next year?
I think he's your halves combination with Cleary next year. That's done deal.
But Moses just won a game.
I think Moses has had plenty of opportunities in the Origin arena, and Cleary has to come back in. He has to. He's the best half in our game. Daly Cherry Evans is pushing very close to that on form, but I think Nathan Cleary is still the best half in our game. So you've got Cleary at 7, and then you've got Walker at 6. I think that's locked in for next series. They stumbled, as you said, they stumbled across Murray starting the game. Absolute belter of a game, played outstanding football. Right, well, it's worked. Let's stick with that. They stumbled across Liam Martin starting on that edge, who played another belter, absolutely cracking game. Good, let's stick with that. It worked. Keon Kolomatangi could not have been better in his debut at back row. They've stumbled across another thing that works. What I'm saying is you're right. They have stumbled and fumbled their way through this whole process. But I believe now when they wake up this morning and they look at each other at the selection table, they have to say, right, this worked. This was a success in terms of this worked, and this worked. I hope they take those principles into their next game. I thought Regan Cameron Gillard was great last night. He was just out in the wilderness, wasn't he? Just because Parra had a bad start to the year, he was just gone. He was just discarded. I mean, if you look at Queensland, the Cowboys had a shocking start to the year. They had like 8 players in last night's game. Do you know? So yeah. I think they've learnt a lot from this series. They have to have learnt a lot. I don't want Freddie to keep his job. I'm saying I don't want him there. But I also didn't want to lose the series either. But it happened, and I predicted that's happened because that's the facts. That's just the way it was looking. It is looking now like Freddie will keep his job. All I can do as a Blues fan and as a rugby league lover, someone who just I dive into the depths of all those selections and things like that, is I just hope that he learns his lesson. That's all I hope.
What mistakes did New South Wales make for you? What were the 3 biggest mistakes
over the course of the series? I think the biggest mistakes, I could either label them or I could just say as a whole, the way they were at the selection table was just absolutely, like the way they treated Nico Hines was terrible. Some of their selections were for game 2. Stefano Udakamanu, I feel absolutely sorry for him. Gets picked, plays 12 minutes off the bench in game 2, doesn't even get an opportunity when nobody really thought he should have been picked in the first place. So he probably would have relished a bit of time to prove something. And then gets a phone call before game 3 and they say, you're being rested. Rested for an Origin game. You're kidding. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's Origin. There's
I'm laughing. For anybody who can't see me, I was laughing then.
There's nothing to rest for. That is it. That's the pinnacle.
Selection table?
Selection table, I think, was atrocious for mine. I think tactically the way they played football was very amateur. Very, very amateur. Slide to slide to slide. No one holding up any sort of the ruck. Yeah. Very one-dimensional. Not creative at all whatsoever. I thought that was terrible. And it got a lot better last night. Cody Walker was great, and it looked amazing. Their attack flowed. It looked natural. It made good players better around him. So I think that was one that was really bad. And I think, honestly, the way that Freddie, Joey, and Brandy handled this period is up there in the top 3 biggest embarrassments of the series.
Interesting.
I think the way they handled themselves on camera, some of their interviews, the way Joey Johns had a fallout with his brother just before the Origin period, and somehow that seemed to dominate the headlines.
I don't see how Freddie can continue with all these things. I honestly don't.
I mean, look at the way Freddie conducted himself in some of the interviews. The way it was
it was personal attack and all this,
personal attacks and things like that. I just
googled his name 22 times or something or whatever. You know,
I just thought, the way they handled themselves in the media, those 3 men, was my other low light for the series. So there's my 3 biggest low lights for the New South Wales Blues in 2023. There's
another team playing in Origin. You never know that when you're on the podcast, but Queensland won a series but then lost last night. So as much as we should say all the positives about New South Wales and this could be something to learn from and blah, 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 what does this mean for Queensland? I mean, are they as good as we think they are, or are they very beatable, or is there
I don't think are they as good as we say they are, or as people say they are? They've lived up to the hype. They've always had a world-class spine. Absolutely world-class spine. Reece Walsh obviously was the young kid on the block in that spine and performed exceptionally throughout game 1 and game 2. His emotions exploited him when he was playing for the Broncos and he missed out on game 3. But I thought Brimson, although not Walsh standard, didn't have a bad game last night. And of course, they do have Kalen Ponga, who ruled himself out of game 3. So they have options there. You know, it's not like they don't. Harry Grant, Ben Hunt, Cameron Munster, Daly Cherry Evans, absolute top flight spine. So to underrate them is tough. Tino Fasua-Malaawi is one of the best front rowers in the game. Has proven that for the Titans for many years now. Fafita's in a purple patch of form. You could go through that whole side, and they're playing. Hamasai Tabuai-Fidow scored 4 tries in 3 Origin games this series, and every time he puts a pair of boots on, he scores a try. That kid, he's an absolute amazing talent. I don't think it's ever been a Queensland, not good or whatever. They're superstars as well. It's just the Blues are underperforming where the Maroons are playing great football. So look, I loved the way they played for each other this series. It was really highlighted in that game 1. The way they defended their line was just absolutely outstanding, and they worked really hard for each other in that aspect. I think another highlight for the Maroons this year was Billy Slater. Another really, this series from Billy Slater was outstanding, and he showed a lot of coaching talent at this level. We haven't seen him on a week-to-week coaching basis, but the way he pulled the side together and the way he held himself in some interviews, I was really, really impressed with Billy Slater. Very, very impressed with Billy Slater. And, when people like Matty Johns say that Billy Slater's got one of the greatest minds in rugby league, you have to stand up and listen, because Matty Johns is certainly respected in this world. Look, I just think that they celebrated together as well, Queensland, and rightfully so. I can't remember the last time the Blues won a series and then you saw them all walk into a pub together with their jerseys on. You don't see that. When was the last time you saw that from the Blues, Lee?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But every single time the Queenslanders win an Origin, I watched them last year win the decider at Suncorp. And then I may or may not have been in a similar area at the time when they walked into the Caxton at 2:30 a.m. all together holding the shield. You don't see that with the Blues. You really don't, Lee. When was the last time you had a picture snap of all the Blues still in their jerseys enjoying a series win? You don't see it anymore, and that says a lot as well.
I'm not sure if the Kangaroos are going to play this year, but this talk of some kind of tournament. But if you were picking a Kangaroo side based on Origin, just quickly go through your 1 to 17. Chris Bugden looks like he's going to join us soon, so I'll lead him in once you've done that.
Tedesco is my fullback still. Tedesco is still the fullback, and he's the captain of the country. I still have him as the best fullback in the world. Reece Walsh was outstanding, but I can't look past James Tedesco just yet. On the wing, I have Murray Talangi. I thought he had a really good series for the Maroons as well. He was outstanding. And are we choosing fit players at the moment, Lee, or are we still just choosing our Kangaroo side? Because
we're choosing a team that can play for the Kangaroos in October.
Okay. On the wing, I have Valentine Holmes. Valentine Holmes is my winger. And that makes way in the centres for, in my opinion, still the 2 best centres in the world, Tom Trbojevic and Latrell Mitchell. I know Latrell Mitchell didn't play a game this series, and Tom Trbojevic played all but 10 minutes through injury, but I still see them as the best centres in the world. So I have them as my centre pairing. In the halves, I have Daly Cherry Evans and Cameron Munster. So Nathan Cleary loses that spot in my side, which is a massive call. I just think that Daly Cherry Evans is in fine form at the moment. He's playing some really good football. I thought he just had an amazing series and was really underrated. In the front row, I have Payne Haas as my number 8, and I have Jake Trbojevic as my other front row. So I have a New South Wales front row pairing, which is harsh on the Queenslanders, on Tino. But that is what it is. That's where we are at the moment. Patrick Carrigan's my lock, so he wins the lock position over the top of Cameron Murray and Isaiah Yeo. Patrick Carrigan sneaks in there. I thought he was really, really strong this series. And then I have David Fafita and Liam Martin in the back row. I still think Liam Martin was great all series, even though he was in a losing side, and David Fafita was really strong as well.
Your hooker?
Hooker is Harry Grant and Ben Hunt as my 14. I thought their 1-2 punch for the Maroons, again, was just stellar. Their spine was outstanding, and it was tough for me to leave Reece Walsh out of that side, but I just still think James Tedesco is our best fullback and our captain.
You've got 3 more bench spots?
I do have 3 more bench spots. I've got Lindsay Collins, Ruben Cotter, and probably Cameron Murray.
You have picked 11 Queenslanders and 7 New South Welshmen.
And I think that's fair. I just
Is
think
that right? No.
And keep in mind
that comes up to 18, doesn't it?
well, I've got Reece Walsh as my 18th man. So there you go. Put him down. That's another
1,
Queenslander.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, I don't know. You got 7 and whatever's left. 7 and 10.
So and it's fair to say that out of those 7 New South Welshmen, 2 of them barely played in the Origin series, which is Latrell and Tom Trebojevic. Yeah. So I just honestly, I still think they're the best centers in the game. So I'm not going to leave them out of my side just because they didn't play many minutes.
Buggo's here. How are you, lad?
Lads. I'm doing well, guys. How are we?
Great, thanks,
right.
Chris.
You've joined us here on Around the Town with Taylor Brown, episode 5. I heard a rumor, Chris, that I wasn't the only rugby league person not watching Origin last night.
No, I would have been with you, Lee. Yeah, no, I didn't see a minute of it, unfortunately.
Our reasons are very different. Mine was because I needed sleep, and I prioritised sleep over watching a dead rubber. Yours?
Oh, look, I'd like to say that it's my form of protest towards the NRL and their lack of emphasis on the international game. I don't think I'll have any effect, Lee. But and look, I'm a bit tongue in cheek here, but I've got to be honest. My sentiment at the moment is that I'm turning off Origin, and this is a real stupid point of view. I get that, but I am turning off Origin because I'm losing faith in the establishment and their lack of ambition for the international game. I just think, imagine 50% of the resources that are poured into Origin every year. Imagine you take 50% of that and you punch it into the international game. And that's a real general statement. I get that, but God, I just want international footy to be good again.
You made a point that you think it's a silly opinion. Well, first of all, I don't think it's a silly opinion, and because Origin seems to have lost a lot of fans over the last 10 years based on viewing figures. So, I mean, obviously, when Buzz Rothfield and the News Corp people write these things, you've always got to wonder if they're having a dig at Channel 9 for obvious reasons. But apparently, the viewing figures last night were quite poor. They were down near the 2 millions. And I think you can understand that to an extent for a dead rubber. But over the 10 years, they've dropped. And I think Buzz wrote a few weeks back that they've lost about 1 million viewers. Taylor, have you got any opinion on why that may be so?
Look, I think that certainly the rise of concussion is an issue, certainly an issue in the way that...
Did you get concussed watching it?
No, what I'm saying is well, you two did. You were both knocked out. What?
I was, not Chris.
What I mean by that is 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, you watched Origin, and my older sister.
Did your sister play Origin?
No, she couldn't.
It's the way you said the sentence, that's all.
My sister used to watch that of Origin for one thing and one thing only. She used to go, I love watching the Biff. I love watching the Biff. You know what I mean? Not the blokes. None of you guys say that, right? She wasn't looking to check out blokes. It was the Biffs. It was the brawls. That's gone away from today's game because of concussion. I think everyone's a bit more wary of it now. She doesn't like watching that anymore because she's got kids of her own. So she now has to worry about 2 brains, and she can see the damages, and she looks away for those things now. And I think that 10 years ago, everyone watched Origin because you knew it was going to be this fiery thing where you might see a blue and, you know.
Agreed.
That's now...
I think you'll find that 10 years is about when the Biff was banned as well.
that shine has gone away from the Biff in general. And it's now seen as ugly. There's push and shove, and no one likes it anymore. Which I mean, I called for Josh Adokar to never play Origin again after game 2, the way he jumped over the top and punched someone. Now, he had a great game last night, redeemed himself with passion.
So is he back in your good books?
He's in my good books. He's not in the Origin, the Australian side, though. He's still got some stuff to make up.
True.
But I think there's a shine off it. And I think you'll find that's one reason why people aren't watching. And that sounds, basic but I just think that's the facts. You used to watch a good blue every single Origin. It used to bubble over and everyone used to enjoy that. No one is enjoying it anymore.
Can you think of any other reasons, Chris?
I had thought for a little while that the gloss would have gone off it more through the domination of Queensland. Put it this way, I think Origin would have nearly died if the domination of those 12 years was New South Wales, because I got a firm belief. I'm a New South Welshman. I actually believe when the Queenslanders say New South Wales don't get Origin. I don't think New South Wales play Origin for the same reason the Queensland players do. I don't think there's the same buy-in from the Blues, from the New South Wales people, as there is from the Queenslanders. And I can only go from, I'm living in Queensland now, but I'll often travel into New South Wales when it's school holidays and that sort of thing. And there's not the same excitement or atmosphere around, the same sort of buzz around the state as there is in Queensland. Queensland love Origin. And I don't know if the million or two that have dropped, what state do they come from, I wonder.
I compared New South Wales and Queensland to Scotland and England. And England being the aristocracy, the money, the power, the privilege, and Scotland being the poorer cousin, if you like, and always having a little bit of a, for want of a better term, a chip on the shoulder for that, because they've always wanted to knock over the English. And I think Queensland is your Scotland a little bit, and New South Wales is your Silvertail kind of thing. So I think that there's a definite thing there. I mean, putting it in a bottle and working out what that is and what the difference is, I don't know how you do that. And I know Taylor made a great point, didn't you, the other week, Taylor, that they don't pick the right type of player for Origin. They don't pick the battlers. They pick the fancy dans. I guess what I'd like to move to now, boys, is where does Origin sit, or should it sit, in terms of international eligibility? Because I think one of the impacts has been that as well. It might be a smaller percentage, but a player like a Brian Toto or a Jerome Luai playing in a Blues jumper and then not playing for Australia, I think that's had an impact on some people's opinions. And I think there are some racist views out there about it, don't get me wrong, but I think there are an awful lot of legitimate views about that aren't racist as well, but not necessarily coming down in the favour. Do you think that's had any impact, Taylor? And what are the answers to that impact?
I don't think it has had an impact. I don't think it's had any impact on. In my opinion, when you say eligibility with Origin, the only impact it's had is that Victor Radley can't get picked anymore because he wants to play for England, or Jackson Hastings, and with full respect to those players, even in Freddie's mad mind, I don't think they were on the selection board. I mean, I say that tongue in cheek because with Freddie's mind, they damn well could have been on the selection board, those two players. But I just, they're the only players, the guys that choose to play for a tier one nation, who is New Zealand and England. So they're the only ones that are ineligible. So it doesn't, I don't think that's played any part of it.
My point is,
I think it's good that those players are picking those other countries to play for.
Yeah.
I like that.
I do.
I like that for the growth of the game. Do I think that means they shouldn't be able to represent Samoa, or shouldn't be able to represent New South Wales if they want to represent Samoa? I don't think so. I think
so. To that point, what is Origin a pseudo selection process for Australia now?
Not anymore.
No.
But officially, is it still?
I don't think it ever officially was.
Bear in mind at one point, in fact, no, it's locked in. There was a
merit team.
No. I know we're soulmates, Taylor, but don't finish me sentences. There was a selection committee of Mal and the 2 Origin coaches to pick the Australian side. Peter Volandis set that up.
I still believe that Origin and Australian team are completely separate. I just named my Australian team. And I just named Tom Trbojevic and Latrell Mitchell in the centres. Latrell Mitchell didn't play a minute of Origin, although he did 2 camps. And Tom Trbojevic did 2 camps and played 10 minutes of Origin. So I do honestly, I think they're completely separate. If the team was picked directly after the series and they immediately went on tour or they immediately did something, then yes. Then I would say don't pick your To'os, don't pick your Luais, for example. Don't pick your Payne Haas's or whoever it is that wants to represent the other countries. But they don't go directly on tour. And I want to see the best playing the best. And that's the best playing the best, unless you're Freddie and you don't pick the best. But that's, you know what I mean? That's the best that they've selected at that time.
He's off, Freddie. Chris, how's your host bus cup knowledge?
A little bit lacking in the last week or two. But I just wanted to say one thing, sorry, before we jump off that point, if I can, Lee. One of the best, one of the best strategies, I think, to improve the international game around this argument is I saw something recently that the pay for a player to represent Tonga, Samoa, and some of these other nations is going to be equivalent now to what the Australian players get. So I only read a snippet in the paper. I don't know who's fronting up the cash or anything like that, but I do think that some of these, and I've got to be real careful of stereotyping and possibly even bending towards the racism side of things. But when some of these young fellas come over and earn some coin over here, and they're sending a lot of it back home to families, it can, the opportunity to earn an extra 60 grand in a year to play 3 Origins and forego representing another nation. I think we've got to try and remove that influence on their decision making. And I just think we've got to pump more money, more prestige, and more into the international game so that, their heart and their wallet and their bank balance can go in the same direction.
Chris, when you say that and you think about players that would select money to do it for the money, in your head right now, close your eyes. Are any of the players doing that and thinking of that? Are any of them in a maroon jersey?
I couldn't tell you either way. Taylor. I'm not biting into where you're coming from there.
What I'm saying is, it's another thing where I think, as you said before, the Maroons, Queensland just get Origin. I don't think any of them would do it for extra money. I think they all just do it for the love. And I think it's a different feeling across the border. They're more show pony, they're more trickster, things like that. Anyway,
yeah, and look, we can say
little sideshow from Brown.
We can say that, and look, none of us ever actually really know. But if we don't, there's got to be visible evidence that the international game is given some sort of priority, and one of the visible signs is that the remuneration is equivalent or at least comparable.
Yeah.
So anyway, that I think was a step in the right direction. I don't know what's come of it. It was only last week or the week before that I read about it. But so sorry, Lee. No, I'm following the Q Cup by results only. I haven't been able to watch a game for several weeks.
You'll have a good eye. Be able to have a good go at tipping against Taylor, and we're going to see how you go. Taylor was 7 out of 7 last week, but that's because he forgot to put his tips in and just did a video of the first 6 with the exact results. So, boys, North Devils versus the Wynnum Manly Seagulls. They play on Saturday at 1400 hours. Taylor, you first.
Where do they play?
At Devilville.
Bash up.
Yeah.
They wouldn't play at Bishop Park.
Why not?
Because it's country round league, so they'll be all around. They'll be everywhere.
Ah, yes.
Sell the game for us, Lee. Sell the game for us.
Yes,
they are at
Wondai.
Which reminds me of Bonsai.
Where is Wondai?
Queensland.
Yeah, darling. Is it out past Toowoomba somewhere?
Out past Toowoomba somewhere, right?
Toowoomba.
Look, any chance of a tip off either of you?
Yeah, so Wynnum versus Norths. I think Wynnum get the win there.
Yeah, I'm going to hesitate to back Norths since they've had a little bit of a fallout with the Broncos.
But they have had a good run since that fallout from the Broncos, the Devils. They've played some outstanding football.
That was interesting.
But I think that train runs out of steam eventually.
Yeah.
Jets versus Capras played at. Well, first of all, does it matter where it's played at, Taylor?
No, it doesn't. But I want to hear where it's played at.
Billawheeler.
Billawheeler.
Where's that?
Not here. And not where you are.
It's in Queensland, isn't it?
It's in Queensland. Billawheeler's a fair whack out, I'm pretty sure, up north.
On the highway.
Capras will get that. Capras will get that one. I can't
Chris?
see him missing out that way.
Yeah, I'm trying not to go with everything Taylor says, but I can't back the Jets. Back the Jets. It's got to be Capras.
Dolphins versus Bears in Miles.
This one's going to be a cracker of a game, but I'm going to go for the Bears. Or not go for. I think the Bears will beat the Dolphins in Miles.
Oh.
I'll go the other.
Did you just tip against the Dolphins?
I just tipped against the Dolphins.
All right. Yeah, sorry, Chris. Go on.
No, I'll tip the Dolphins. I think they're getting better each week. Well, their trend is getting better each week. So I'm going Dolphins.
In Kilcoy, Tigers versus the Seagulls.
This is a tough one. Tweedhead Seagulls have shown some promise this year, although the Tigers have had an outstanding year. They just lost in last week's Hampo Cup. Tweedheads. I'm thinking they'd probably be a little bit disappointed by that and might bounce back. So I'm going to go with the Seagulls to beat Tigers. That's my upset of the week.
I'm less likely to tip the Tigers than I am to tip the Jets. And that's a personal thing. I'll back whoever's playing the Tigers, the Seagulls.
Just a cranky old man, aren't you? in Weeper. Chris is a weeper. Falcons are playing against the Pride, 9th versus 7th.
This is a very important game for both clubs. Very important on this back end run into the finals. But I think the Falcons get it done. I think the Falcons win here. They've got some good class across the park. It'll be interesting. This is probably the Falcons at sort of one of their weakest periods coming out of the Origin time frame. Obviously, they backfill the Melbourne Storm, who backfill plenty of Origin stars. Grant, Munster, to name a few. But I think Falcons get it done.
I'm tipping the Falcons, but not by as much as what their Colts side beat the Pride last week.
Yeah. Ooh.
Which was, maybe half as much. Falcons by 40.
Magpies and Cutters at Proserpine.
Proserpine's not too far for the Cutters at all. It's just around the corner there. But I still
around the corner about 15 hours or something.
That's around the corner in North Queensland.
Proserpine from Mackay?
I don't know. What are you asking me about Queensland geography? I don't know any of that.
Proserpine and Mackay, throw a stone between them. Mackay is the big winner here around the country, and they just go around the corner. I still think the Magpies, they've got a great side, doing really well this year.
And then at Stanthorpe.
Do you want my tip?
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, go on.
That's the same. I think the Magpies will win the comp this year.
Huge goal.
At Stanthorpe, where Taylor will be doing sideline
commentary this week, yes, at Stanthorpe.
I'll come with you. I've never been to Stanthorpe before. Blackhawks and Clydesdales.
Blackhawks. Keep in mind, though, Chris, as you're thinking about this, it's going to be very cold, which is Toowoomba-like weather. Weather.
I'm going to go a little bit of an upset. I think the Toowoomba boys will love playing at Stanthorpe. Okay. Yep, I'm going for the Clydesdales.
Wow. Well, there we go. There's the tips. And
beautiful.
Boys, as you know, when I host a podcast, I like to talk and end with something
ridiculous,
absolutely unrelated to rugby league. But you could say this is related. What beer is the best beer?
That's very much related.
On Earth.
On Earth.
If I was going to sit down and have a beer and I didn't think about anything else other than
the beer in question.
Stone and Wood.
Pacifico.
Oh, beautiful.
No.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Christopher?
I'll go back to what I did my apprenticeship on. Tui's New.
Oh,
Oh.
Dewey's new.
For you both to say they're the best beers, I mean, honestly, like, have you ever been outside of your front door, and had a look at what's out
It
there?
depends if you're having a session or not. I mean,
If I went and got a Stone
I
and
don't mind
Wood,
a craft beer. I love a craft beer, but I can only have one or two of them before they're a little bit too sweet or a bit too fruity. Whereas, your traditional 4Xs, VBs, Tui's New, you can drink them all night.
see, I could drink Stone and Wood all night. But then I get the extra fruity ones for my one-offs. Oh, they're crazy. The XP
When you have a beer, you want to get a beer, not fruit. If you want fruit, you go to the fruit shop and get some fruit.
Okay, well, how about this? I'll put a Stone and Wood in the microwave for 5 minutes and then give it to you, and you'll probably like it then.
You've been watching or listening to episode 5 of the.
Hang on. What's your beer?
I'd be an English bitter, something like a Tetley's.
Oh, talk about a glass house. Fair dinkum.
Can I ask you, Lee? Because this is a point of interest of mine. In the English pub sort of culture over there, is it true that like most of the pubs were already like what we would call craft brewers, in the sense that most of the pubs over there traditionally brewed their own beer? And
they did traditionally, yeah, but with time, most of them have become part of chains or whatnot. But yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's a massive industry in England, but it's not as big as it used to be, unfortunately. But yeah, there's some places that do their own. Yeah. I think on Saturday I'll be enjoying 4X off the wood, actually.
Oh, did you go down to the creek? The creek there, the Breaky Creek
Hotel. I think so. Yeah.
So the other question, Lee, is you're flying into England not this Saturday, the following Saturday. You fly out to watch the 5th Test. Let's say, just for goodness sakes, just for a bit of fun, Chris and I turn around, we get a bit of annual leave built up, and we decide to get on the plane with you for England, and you want to take us to the best pub in the world. Where's the best pub, Lee? Where's your favourite pub in the world?
Now that is a question. I couldn't limit it in England. There's that many good ones. I could not limit it for you.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Where's the 5th Test?
At the Oval in London.
London. Well, plenty to choose from then, I guess.
Plenty to choose from in London, but if I brought you up north, I could bring you to some brilliant places. There's loads. There's more good pubs in some streets in England than there is in the whole state of Queensland. Like, it's different kinds of pubs, It's a different kind of pub that you're talking about.
Yeah, okay.
And they tend to be my favourite type. So, in my opinion, but there's great pubs in Queensland, New South Wales. Of course there is, but yeah, they're just very different. You don't have to go far, mate, to find a good pub in England.
Okay.
You can almost fall out of bed.
And you did for many years.
Yes.
All right, you can wrap it up now.
Thank you. Consider it wrapped up. Episode 5.